Aw, yeah, it's time for another episode of Ahsoka Unbridged. Not unbridged, abridged. The show where we talk about Ahsoka, the Star Wars show, the current Star Wars show that's playing on Disney Plus. We got a chance to watch the latest episode, Part 7, Dreams and Madness. I am your host, Vactor, along with the best co-host in the world, Shaw. How you doing, Shaw?
I'm doing good. I'm doing real
Yeah.
good. I'm excited to talk about Ahsoka today. Yes. How are you?
Penultimate episode. I'm doing very well, sir, because I'm talking with my boy Shaw about
Yeah.
Star Wars. There's nothing better than talking to Shaw about Star Wars. So I can't wait. Let's get into it, Shaw. Part 7, Dreams and Madness. Now, this being the penultimate episode, Shaw, did it live up to your expectations? And I'm actually interested to hear your thoughts at this point in the season. We are 90% through this season.
Yeah,
We don't know if
right.
they're getting a season 2, but has this show lived up to your expectations to this point right now where we're at?
Sure. So, first question about the episode, just on its own. I didn't love it. I got to say, I didn't love it from a penultimate episode. Like, from my, just like watching TV and knowing plenty of shows, the penultimate episode usually is the big one. Like, that's the one where the real, SHIT goes down. Like, and then the season finale is the resolution of all of that. But they're saving everything for the season finale. And this episode, if anything, felt more like filler than and just the reunion. And it also ended on just from a spoiler perspective, it ended up on a higher note, like a happy note, which to me tells me that the season finale is not going to end on a happy note. But overall, as a series, as a show, it has far exceeded my expectations. Going into it, I didn't really have too much of like an interest in Ahsoka. I hate to say it, but like I didn't have Clone Wars. Like I didn't grow up with that show. I had watched Rebels, so I was more interested in the Rebels characters than I was in Ahsoka. But overall, the show itself has really grabbed my attention. I've been really interested in it, and I've always been looking forward to it each week. What about you?
Yeah. So as it's been progressing, and I think we've talked about it on this show, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting and being like, okay, they're gonna get to it. They're gonna get to it. Just wait, have patience. Because the very first episodes we thought were kind of slow. The kind of pacing, even
Right.
the dialogue, the way that they were speaking was kind of slow, kind of drawn out. And so I was like, no, just give Filoni time to cook. Give him a chance. And the window on like the remaining, okay, we're getting smaller, and now it's like we have one episode left. Literally, we are at the last point. There, after this episode, after this week, we can no longer say, oh yeah, we've got more Ahsoka left. It's like this is it. There's no more left. So I'm starting to dread. I think at this point I'm starting to be like, I don't think they're gonna stick the landing of this last episode. Has to be amazing. It has to be fantastic for me to say, was this journey worth it? Was it worth it to go from where these characters were at in that first episode to where they're at in this episode? And for me, the only thing that we've gotten so far is Ahsoka the White. That's the only thing
Right.
that's come out of this. Everything else has been okay. They found Thrawn, they found Ezra, but nothing's happened. They're still in the same place. There hasn't been any change. It was just kind of okay. We found them. They're there now.
Right.
That's it. There hasn't been any character development with Thrawn. There hasn't been any character development with Ezra. So it's like, what is this last episode? Is it going to be Thrawn getting back to like that's the last shot? Is all right. He's back in the regular Star Wars universe and setting up the movie. Well, how many years is it going to be before that movie, right? Like how many years is it going to be before we get more of this stuff, man, the next season of Mando? So in my mind, I'm like still kind of optimistic about okay, they're going to give us something great in this last episode, but I'm just like I said, that feeling of dread is starting to creep in over my shoulder. So at this point, I really want that last episode to be great and I want it to be fantastic. But I just don't know.
Yeah. Well, this episode was interesting because, first of all, it's called Dreams and Madness. Why? Why was it called that? Like, where were there any dreams? There was not a single aspect of that. Madness? I mean, I just don't know what this title is meant to imply. Usually the titles are a little bit more understood over the season. Far away, I think, was the last episode. We've had Shadow Warrior. Like, there, a lot of these things made sense, but Dreams and Madness makes no sense unless it was a line that I just missed in dialogue that, like, a night sister, or I'm sorry, a night mother or Thrawn said, like, in passing. Like, I don't remember that line being uttered, but it, to me, it felt like a really weird episode title for what we saw. There were definitely some good things that happened in the episode and some fun stuff, but I just don't understand why it was called Dreams and Madness.
Well, I can give you a little bit on that. So nothing
Please
in
do
this
enlighten me.
nothing in this episode alluded to that, but in a previous episode, when they first got to Peridia, Balin Skull said, "This is a place of dreams and madness," and that was his
There you
description
go.
to Shin.
He said it.
So I guess just describing Peridia, but even then, it's like that's still not a great title for this episode, just because it took place all on Peridia.
And not to mention that we don't even see like that sinister force. We know that Balin is being called to it, whatever it is. Maybe it's sinister. We don't really know. We know that there's some. It's enough that the Night Mothers are wanting to get out of town, like, and get off this planet. There's a lot of theories out there. It's the Zephos. It's Kujet. It's Absalom or whatever his name is. Like, there's all these theories out there, and I love theory culture, but I'm trying not to, like, dig into it too hard because especially when you've got an 8-episode season and you still haven't revealed what that is until now we're heading into episode 8, it seems extremely unlikely that they're going to drop that much of a reveal so late into the season. Like, that's something you build up, but the reveal should have happened episodes ago if they were going to go down that road. So I feel like people are digging their heels pretty deep into something that is probably pretty unlikely at this point.
Yeah, and I feel like that's that Lost effect. We got that from Lost of digging into every theory, every little nook and cranny, and then at the end it's like, oh yeah, none of that mattered. It was all just that wasn't the point that the storytellers were trying to tell. Like, the audience, it was fun doing it week to week and the water cooler conversation, which what we're doing right now. But when we look back on it, I think it's not going to matter. A lot of the stuff that we were theorizing, and even the who is Merrick and who is all these things, and it's like it didn't really matter. That wasn't the point. So
I saw online somebody was saying that Balin is being called to Mephisto, sort of like playing off the WandaVision theory.
Man.
It's Mephisto.
That's hilarious.
Every mystery is Mephisto.
Right. Imagine if he showed up. That would be hilarious.
That would be amazing.
Crossover. I said earlier that this was took place all on Peridia, but I forgot. Actually, the very first shot of this episode is a political scene with the senators and Hera. There was a little bit of member berries there. We got an appearance from C-3PO, and then a mention of Leia, Senator Organa.
Yep.
What did you think of that? Because we didn't talk off mic about that. What did you think about that?
So I get why they can't include Leia.
Yeah,
because, well, a number of reasons, right? And also, it seems like Star Wars, or I should say Disney Star Wars, they're hesitant to recast Leia. They're hesitant to really recast Luke. Like, they're doing refacing and deep fakes and stuff, like, to get around it, versus just casting somebody else who maybe looks a little bit like it or whatever that we'll buy, But and C-3PO makes sense because of how prolific C-3PO is in the live action TV or film properties. I think he's been in everything except for Rogue One in some capacity.
He knows Hera. We've seen him interact with Hera before in the
Yeah,
animated
exactly.
stuff. So
Yeah. So I mean, I like it, but I also felt like it was fan service
mhm.
more than anything else. And I'm not usually against fan service. When you're a fan, that's what you want to see. Like you hope for that stuff. So
Right.
it doesn't really bother me. I just kind of felt like I felt like that whole Hera thing was unnecessary.
Really,
Especially since you've got a senator. I think if anything, the scene, all it really does is prove that this is why the New Republic
yes.
could never last.
That's what I thought. That was my takeaway from it. I actually was on another podcast and we were talking about how worthless this scene was. But
Yeah.
my takeaway was it was the whole point is to show you how inept the New Republic is and why what happens in 7, 8, and 9 happens. Like that's why the government is so bad because they just set up a series of stuff for 30 years leading up to episode 7
Right.
where they're just mismanaged. They they don't know how to govern all these systems. And there's actually some interesting stuff in the Legends Star Wars stuff, which is no longer canon, but where Leia kind of becomes so disenfranchised with the government and how it's poorly being run. She kind of splits off and has her own segment, like her own kind of government. We see that a little bit in 7, 8, 9, where she's formed a rebellion of her own.
Yeah.
But I just all of that stuff is interesting to me. All the politics in Star Wars is interesting to me more than politics in our world, Shoff. I'm interested in the politics in the Star Wars world. So that was what I enjoyed about that was kind of okay, look how bad the New Republic is, look how terrible they are. But it also and I'm of two minds of this, Shoff, and I haven't told you this off mic. I'm I have the part of me that's like, okay, I love Star Wars. I love being in the Star Wars universe. So I'm enjoying this show for that aspect of it because I'm getting to spend more time in the Star Wars universe. Never going to be uh, like not enjoying myself in the Star Wars universe. But then there's the other half of me that's like looking at it from a TV standpoint of does this show compare to Strange New Worlds, for example? Let's just take
Okay.
another like sci-fi property and you think about that courtroom episode in Strange New Worlds, and it just blows it out of the water to me of which one is more interesting
Hmm.
of a show, not the universe, not the background characters, that's what's going on, but just from a production standpoint, like the way that it's shot, the way it looks, the way it's directed. And these other shows that are coming out, there's shows on Apple TV right now, there's shows on Amazon that are just really blowing it out of the water, and Ahsoka is not. And why is that? Like Disney, I'm sure, is putting a ton of money behind these Star Wars projects, and for this Ahsoka show to not be like the best looking show on TV right now, that kind of boggles my mind of why, what behind the scenes is going on that this is not Andor. Like Andor to me, just the look of it and the feel of it, it was like this is an amazing TV show, let alone the fact that it's Star Wars.
Right.
And with Ahsoka, I'm like, yeah, I like the characters, I like the storyline, I like the spending time in the universe, but the show itself, it's hard for me to recommend this to non-Star Wars fans. I don't know if you feel the same way on that.
Well, I think Ahsoka definitely benefits from having some prior background with
Yeah,
the
right,
characters.
right.
I don't think it's really super accessible for those who are just hopping into it.
Mhm.
We were talking about Strange New Worlds. Strange New Worlds is a great introduction to Star Trek for somebody who didn't watch all the other series that
Yes,
preceded it.
yes.
So it's a great way to kind of gain new viewership that way. Ahsoka really lends itself better to the veterans of the Star Wars universe and fandom. But like you said, I'm super grateful that it exists because there was definitely the dark time. There was a time when we didn't
Oh,
have
yeah. Right.
anything
Yep.
before the sequel trilogy. I mean, the extent of what we were getting were remasters of the original trilogy. Like that's all we could hope for.
Right.
I remember going to the theaters and seeing the prequel trilogy, like Phantom Menace. The line I was in to see the Phantom Menace was probably the longest line I've ever been in
Yeah.
for a movie theater. I
Yeah.
went to go see it at the Cine Capri, I remember, and the
Hmm.
line was in the parking lot, around the building. Like, it was ridiculous, and we stood for hours. And that was back when we were, they were really doing midnight screenings, and people were all dressed up. I mean, you went full nines on that.
Oh man.
And so I'm so grateful that there's so much accessible content now, but it hopefully it doesn't go the route of Marvel where the quality wanes as a result of there being
Right.
so much.
Yeah.
So
That's kind of my fear as well. But again, Marvel's the same way. It's like, I just love being in a Marvel universe, just like I love being in the Star Wars universe. So you and I think we want the quality to be amazing, and we want to be able to say, hey, you're not a Star Wars fan? Watch this. You're not a Marvel fan? Watch this. But this, I think the last year or two, it's been kind of a struggle for us geeks to be like, this is amazing. Look at this thing that I
well,
love.
I mean, Mando's been great. Book of Boba
I re-
Fett, I think that's the real misstep so far in the live action TV stuff. Andor was incredible, start to finish. I'm so glad they're getting a second season. Really looking forward to that. Mando's had ups and downs for sure. There's been episodes that really felt like filler. But overall, we have to thank Discovery, Star Trek Discovery, for really reigniting
Yes.
the franchise. For Star Trek. You've got Mando really reigniting Star Wars live action television.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And creating this cohesive world that now has all these crossovers and characters and things like that. So
Yeah.
so that's awesome. And episodes like 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm sorry, 4, 5, and 6, and maybe even 3. I can't recall but those ones were excellent in Ahsoka. So this is, it's hard to keep that momentum all the way through, especially when you're trying to find some way to resolve what you're doing.
Right.
But I really feel like going into episode 8, I have no idea what they're going to do.
I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, like I don't know what Balin's searching for. I assume I think we saw a shot of Thrawn looking out on the Scion ship, which means that he clearly made it to the Scion ship, and it looked like he was looking out to Cetos, just from like the image, which tells me that he did make it back to our galaxy, to the mainline galaxy, whatever you want to call it. So like I think that's needed, right? Like for the movie that's to come, like he has to achieve his goal,
right?
He can't get stuck there,
right?
Plus, would that really be a fitting end for him? I don't think so. He's too cool a character to just like have him just remain on a planet like that after all of that buildup.
Right.
So,
well, I think it's a double-edged sword, not knowing what's going to happen in this last episode, because number one, it's exciting that we don't know, that we can't predict what's going to happen. That's fun. On the other hand, it's like, man, I hope they just I hope they actually have something for us, and it's not just, oh, that was it. That was what they had planned this whole episode, this whole season. And we already know he's going to be the bad in the movie. And I bet you, I've already seen this theory online, but I think if the movie is not called Heir to the Empire, there's something wrong. There's something wrong if that movie is not titled Heir to the Empire. I can't think of
wow, that'd be a
anything
brilliant
else.
title. Yeah.
But Thrawn has to be shown in all his glory. Like so far, because you and I know Thrawn, like we know the depths of the character, but for someone who's watching this for the first time, okay, everybody's been talking about him. Same thing with Ezra. Everybody's been talking about him. And now we've seen him for a couple episodes. Well, he hasn't really done anything. He's outsmarted him a little bit and maneuvered a little bit on the chessboard, but beyond that, why is he such a threat? So that's what I want to see from this movie that's coming up here.
If anything, so far this season, what we've seen of Thrawn is that he's like a resource manager. He's always like, just send out a couple of ships.
Yeah, right.
Don't send out too. We have to keep our resources.
Yeah.
Don't want to. Don't eat too much.
Right.
You only get one portion. Don't go back for more mashed potatoes. We got to save those for tomorrow.
Quarter portion.
That is like what we've seen from him. And actually, this last episode 7, he had a series of kind of losses. I mean, they're losses, but they're wins because, as he said, um, Ahsoka is running out of the main commodity, which is time, and he's using that to get the rest of these sarcophaguses or whatever onto the Star Destroyer. So, or the Chimera, I should say. So,
we need
we
to
don't
find
know
out
too
what
much about those coffins. What's happening with those? Like, that's
we need
another
to find
mystery.
out what that plan is, and we need to find out what Balin's plan is. Those are two mysteries that we need to have satisfying resolutions for. I think Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra, for the most part, I don't think we're going to get too much more out of them. Like I said, Ahsoka the White was the big revelation for this season. I don't think Sabine is going to get too much more development as a Jedi or as her Padawan, whatever it turns out to be. I don't think Ezra's going to get that much. But I do want to talk about Ezra in this episode. But before we do, my favorite part of this entire episode was the training.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yep. I was going to say it's the Anakin hologram. Yeah.
Yes. And we talked about it on a previous episode that there was more Anakin dialogue that we hadn't seen. So I was like, oh, I hope we get some more. And so when I saw it on here, I was like, yes, at least we got a little bit more. It wasn't just one and done with Hayden Christensen. We got some more from him. And it's cool because in Rebels, you saw these training, I don't know what they're called, these holograms, where she showed Ezra. She was like, look, he left 20 of these for me. And he was like, man, I wish I could have met him. And so seeing that here in live action with Hayden Christensen, that was my favorite part of this whole episode.
Don't you feel like right before he like bowed and like his hologram like dissipated, weren't you expecting him to say live long and prosper? Like, or no, sorry, not live long. I mean, you know what I mean?
May the force be with you. Yeah.
Oh man, that was bad.
I thought you were just joking. Yeah.
He's like, hey, Ahsoka, live long and prosper.
Either one would have made somewhere. Either one would have made me happy. If he had done that, that would have made me happy.
That would have. Everyone would have lost their minds.
Yes. Yes.
No, if he had said, "May the force be with you," like that would have been the appropriate salutation, like to end it. Because I don't think we're going to see any more content of him the rest of this season. So if that's going to be his like farewell, and who knows if we'll see him again? Who knows? Right. But like, if this is it, I think that's the line you got to end on, personally. Right.
And not just okay.
No, I was just going to say, like, it looked like it was on the tip of his tongue. Like, you could, like, see it. Like, he was about to say it, and then he just went.
Yeah, I could. And it's not just for this season, not just for this show, but that could be the final Hayden in Star Wars. Like, I can't think of any other project where he would fit in unless you do something like a Force Ghost in the future somewhere. That's the only other place I can see him, or maybe another flashback somewhere. But this would have been the perfect send off for that. So that was a little disappointing, but I think he did a great job in this season.
He did,
in particular. So I wanted to talk about the Ezra of it all in this episode because Sabine tries to give him it's really his lightsaber, but he's like, no, it's yours now. So that got me thinking, obviously we're going to see more of Ezra, right? Or does he die in the next episode? That would be crazy if they brought him back.
So. I think he's going to be around.
So does he construct another lightsaber for the future going forward? Because a Jedi without a lightsaber, that just doesn't make sense. So
merchandising.
I'm wondering what's going to happen in the future with him. But also in this episode, I thought it was great of him just to fight with the Force. And we've been seeing this. This wasn't something that was really prevalent in the other episodes, but I think recently or semi-recently, we've been seeing this a lot. The first time I can recall is Kylo Ren and Rey in episode 9 when they're fighting on that crashed Star Destroyer.
Yep.
There's a couple times where he blocks the lightsaber with the Force. We also saw it in more recently Obi-Wan, where Vader was fighting Reva, and that was just to show how much he outclassed her, because
Yeah.
he was like he wasn't even trying at that point.
He
So
was like,
he was able to, yeah,
"Mm."
that's exactly right. Which was great. Like I love that to show how much further ahead he was in the Force. His level up was crazy compared to Reva's. So he was stopping it just because that's how strong in the Force he was. Here, Ezra, you can see he's like struggling a little bit, and it's against Shin, who we don't know Shin's power levels at this point, but she's an apprentice, so it's hard to think that she's really OP or really super powerful. So for him to stop it, it was cool just to see that. Something we don't usually see. You know, whenever we see a lightsaber fight, it's always two lightsabers. So that I thought was cool in the context of this episode. Do you have any hopes for Ezra, or is there any theories that you can think of what where they're going to go with him?
Um, well, I could see him playing a part in Ahsoka's, new Jedi
Ooh,
group, right? Like
yes.
she's training Jedi. So I could see that being, if they went to like a second season, maybe that would be the focus then. After the movie is done, then she's got Grogu, she's got Luke is involved with that. You've got Ezra, like what Luke and Ezra, like they're at the same time, like
Also,
that'd be amazing.
Cal Kestis is running around somewhere. We don't know
Exactly.
exactly
Yes.
where he's at this point. So
He's on
that
Tanalor.
okay, that would be amazing. Like, and the actor is the perfect age right now. He could play Cal Kestis. Like, there's
Yeah.
no reason
There's
the
no
actor
reason
that
why
portrayed him in the video game couldn't play him in live action.
I thought for sure he was going to appear in this season of
I
Ahsoka,
did
but
too. Yeah.
this whole like Ezra Sabine thing, it's really confusing to me because
Yes. I wanted to
it
get into that
it
too.
it sort of like implies that there might be
Right.
um
I think there is. I think it's going to be at some point.
like a will they won't they type
Yeah.
thing.
Right.
But at the same time, in the same show, she's referred to him as a brother or
Which is
something like.
very Star Wars.
I
That's
know
very
that's what I was gonna
fitting
say.
in
Like I
Star
was like,
Wars.
well, it's not uncommon for Jedi's to make out with their sisters. So
yeah. So that would fit right in.
yeah, so that would be okay. But it definitely feels like, and that was different. Like Rebels, I also felt like there was more of a they could be an item. But then as well, at the end of
Right,
the
right,
season, end of the series, there was an understanding that they were more like siblings.
right.
And then now we come over here and it's the same thing. Like, they kind of operate in a weird, like flirty
Right.
family way. And I'm like, this is just a little strange. But I also feel like he's the better person to be her master in terms of like an apprentice master
Right,
thing.
right.
I don't like the Sabine Ahsoka master Padawan thing. Like that doesn't work for me. But I think like Ezra and Sabine, that works better.
Right. Well, I also think Disney needs to decide what they want to do with the future of the Jedi, because they've been going back and forth. You can even look at episode 8 of, are the Jedi a good thing? Are the Jedi a bad thing? Should we have this master and apprentice thing? And in this show, I think with Balin and Skull, that's a perfect kind of analogy for the entire Star Wars universe. It's like they are master and apprentice. That's the traditional thing. She's even got the Padawan braid. But Balin, the way he's talking, it's like, oh, the Jedi need to die. We need to get away from the Jedi. And there's a new path moving forward. Like, I'm interested in this new power.
Right.
And I want to like go with that. Disney, give us something, either make a decision, right? Like either you're going to do the traditional Jedi thing, or, and that's what we saw in Legends, where Luke rebuilt the Jedi Order. There was a whole new Jedi Academy. Now with the new current canon, it felt like they were trying to say, oh yeah, we should let the past die, kill it if you have to, like get away from that and form something new. And I even felt like with Ahsoka, I felt like, oh, she's already given up the Jedi Order. She's already walked away.
Yeah.
She's something new at this point with white lightsabers. So where do we go from here? And that's what I'm interested in, with Filoni telling us, like, give us the Filoni version of that.
Yeah. I guess the downside with all of this is that they back themselves into an uncomfortable corner by having the sequel trilogy essentially dismantle all of that. So whatever efforts that Luke has made to create a Jedi Academy, a new Jedi Academy on wherever it was. I don't know if they revealed that planet, but
yeah, I don't
can't
think they did.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, I mean, everyone's all worried, like, is Grogu going to be one of the trainees that gets killed, like, by Ben Solo? Like, and I think that's what they're maybe hesitant to do, is to go down that road, because the eventual ending point of that road is everybody who's being trained by Luke is going to get killed.
Right.
Except for
And
Ben.
yeah, and they released, or they've already revealed that there is a Rey movie coming, and it's after Episode 9. So that's going to be the furthest point in the future that we've ever seen with Star Wars. So we'll see, what is she going to do? Like, at that point,
Makes
it
me
seems
wish
like
they didn't
she's
have the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, it's kind of a disappointing thing overall, but I want to see what is Disney's version of the Jedi. What are they going to say ultimately when we look back on it in 10, 15 years? What was the point of it, right? So
yeah,
I'm interested.
But a couple just like throw out like notes I had, just like real minor stuff I wanted to mention. It was funny when Chopper was getting super feisty.
Oh yeah.
In that like scene within the Coruscant, like whatever, New Republic.
Droid right.
Mere droid. He was like, I'll end you, man. I'm gonna cut you. When they had that whole minefield scene, I was like totally thinking about Galaxy Quest. Did that jive for you too? Oh man, I did. The whole thing, I was like, oh my gosh, this is Galaxy Quest right here. She's trailing mines right now. They're just like hanging out behind her. She's that was cool. And that's one of my favorite scenes in that movie. So I was like, this is awesome. Nice. Every time I see Thrawn, I get giddy. I get straight up giddy. He is a joy to watch and listen to. And I love his voice so much.
The voice makes that performance, like, it really captures the essence of Thrawn, and it makes you feel like this commanding presence. So I'm glad they cast him.
What was first just a dream is now a nightmare for those who may oppose us. I love it. The lightsaber fight between Ahsoka and Baylan, another excellent saber fight. It just shows how powerful Baylan is, and how proficient he is with the lightsaber to really take on Ahsoka and pretty much be 2-0 against Ahsoka.
Right.
I mean, so that, I mean, no contest. As far as if they duel again, I doubt it. I think he's off on his own solo mission at this point from here on forward.
Right.
And whatever he unlocks, personally, I think that he's not going to make it out of this next episode. Whatever he's seeking, I think is going to be his undoing.
Yeah, I was thinking that also.
Because if they, they wouldn't have this knowledge ahead of time, but I mean, if they leave him open-ended or like a very important plot point for going forward, and he's obviously passed, like that's really unfortunate. So I hope that his character has a fitting conclusion, so that we don't have any like weird plot threads that are just left open and he's unable to continue them. And I love the reunion. It was great to see them all reunite, have Ahsoka save them in that last moment. But yeah, Ezra doing all the force pushing and like stopping the saber, loved it. I loved it. And he's actually playing Ezra really well. I think he's got the attitude down. The snarkiness, like the confidence. It was great. I would have liked to seen a little bit more acrobatics, but other than that, he had it.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the budget of this show. Man, I wish, like, the fight choreography throughout this, I wish they could have hired the prequel choreographer, who was Nick Gilliard is his name, but obviously the episode 1 Duel of the Fates battle, and then episode 3 the Hayden and Ewan fight, like, it's unparalleled. Like, I don't know if they will ever be able to top those in Star Wars.
I also think that we'll probably get a moment between Ezra and Jason in the season finale, because Ezra doesn't even know that Kanan and Hera had a child.
Right. And
the fact that he's force sensitive, if Ezra's not going to be training Sabine, I fully believe Ezra would be the master to Padawan Jason Syndulla.
Yes, that would be perfect.
That would be a perfect bit of poetry you know.
Yes.
So, and George Lucas, Filoni, they're all about that poetry. So
It rhymes. Man, Shoff, I love discussing these episodes with you. And I
thank you.
think
Likewise.
if anyone is enjoying our conversations on Ahsoka, we can announce now, Shoff, that we will be covering Loki as it moves
Yes.
forward. We talked about the MCU. So we're going to continue Shoff and I's banter back and forth on episodic television. Loki's episode 1 actually is the same week as Ahsoka episode 8.
Double duty.
We're going to have some fun, but the Shoff and Vactor connection is going to continue here in the Vactor-Verse. We'd love to have you as a returning guest joining us here, whether it's in audio or video form. If you ever have any questions or comments, don't forget, if you're watching here on YouTube, leave them down below. Let us know. We always respond to insightful comments. We had one the other day on our episode, and I was very happy to see that, because we don't get enough of that feedback. So give us more like Kylo Ren, more.
Oh, I already have a name for our Loki coverage. We can call it the Low-Key Lowdown.
Oh, now we're talking. This is why Shoff is here.
Just like,
this is why right here. But Shoff, thank you for joining me as always, sir. You are a pleasure and a delight.
Thank you so much. I love being on it, and thank you so much for allowing me to enter the Vactor-Verse every week.
Yeah. All right, my friends. Until next week, may the force be with you.
Prosper.